So I was in Best Buy. I was perusing the video game section, which I always do when I take the trip to the local mall. And I got a weird message on my phone that I had to look twice at that said that, according to TMZ, that Kobe Bryant had died in a helicopter crash. I looked at it and I looked at it again, and I told myself there's no way that this is real. Maybe there was a hack job, or maybe they had jumped to conclusions about something. I wasn't buying the story that was being shared. So I got what I was getting at Best Buy, and I left, and I went out into the mall itself, and I sat on a bench, and I immediately opened Twitter, and it wasn't long before my irrational thinking was proven wrong. And multiple outlets were parroting the TMZ story. And before long, sports reporting sources were also repeating the story, and it was real. And it got worse because it was Kobe, it was his 13-year-old daughter. There were other families on board the helicopter. It was surreal to try and comprehend what was going on. Keeping in mind that Kobe had been in the news quite a bit in the last week or 10 days. I remember reading a story on ESPN where Dwight Howard, who's with the Lakers, I believe, had asked Kobe to help him out with his dunk attempt that he's going to have for the slam dunk contest at NBA All-Star Weekend. And then I believe that LeBron James had just passed him on the all-time, had just passed Kobe Bryant on the all-time Lakers scoring list, and Kobe had reached out to him. I think that was just hours, like a dozen or 18 hours before. So it's been a surreal day. It has been a difficult day, and I don't even feel right feeling like this, feeling kind of lost and shocked and stunned. Uh, Reason being is because basketball is not really my sport. I know of it. I certainly play my fair share of basketball video games, so I know who Kobe Bryant is. Uh, I spent many years watching ESPN, and Kobe Bryant made so many highlight reels. So, I know, or I knew who he was. When Shaq went to the Lakers and he was playing with Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq is one of the players that I've followed from the jump. The first two basketball jerseys I ever had were Larry Johnson from the Hornets, because I loved the colors, and Shaquille O'Neal because I just thought that Shaq with the Magic was awesome, and he was throughout his almost entire career until the very end when he was just kind of hanging on. So I know that Kobe is one of the best to ever do it. I am pretty sure that Kobe would have been elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame this year, and the Basketball Hall of Fame is about 10 minutes from my house. He is one of the athletes that I probably would have seen what the money was going to be to get down there to watch him get inducted. Same thing when LeBron James goes, and he will go eventually. And now, while he probably still will get in, it is going to be a very bittersweet moment rather than a celebration of his career and the man and everything behind that. And that sucks a lot. And I have no right to feel this bad. I don't know him. I never had a relationship with him. I certainly can't consider myself a huge fan. But I think that Kobe transcended his sport. He was one of the people that, like, along with Tom Brady or Tiger Woods, these are people, when you think sports, these are central figures. These are people that you're going to hear their name quite a bit, and you're going to know who they are, and you feel like you're familiar with them. And moving back to the video game sphere for just a little bit, I mean, Kobe Bryant had an agreement with Nintendo for quite some time. I believe that there were three different versions of NBA Courtside. There were two for the N64, and then there was one for the GameCube. The GameCube one is the one I know best because that's the one that I played the most. So Kobe's had his mark in video games, and if it isn't his own games, certainly his appearance in other basketball simulations is definitely there. And what really hit home for me, what made it even more difficult, is there's a content creator out there who I'm not gonna name names, because his sense of humor can be a little risque at times. It tends to go a little overboard sometimes, but that's the kind of humor that I need sometimes when I'm having a really difficult day. So I've been watching his stuff for a couple of years now, maybe a little bit longer. And when I heard about this news, he was the first person I thought of because Kobe Bryant was this man's muse. He was this man's favorite anything. Any of the NBA 2K videos that this guy made, Kobe was always at the center of them, always mentioned at least a couple of times. And lo and behold, not too long after the news broke, I saw that he was initiating a YouTube stream, which I couldn't watch at the time because I was at the mall. And if you've ever been to a mall, you understand that that bandwidth in a mall is almost non-existent. So I had to wait until I got home. And when I got home, listening to him struggle with this, listening to the breaking in his voice, the sniffling, it sounded like he cried, which is completely understandable. The poor man was on his first vacation. He's been working his tail off on his YouTube and Twitch channels and building his brand for a long time. And he's finally at a point that he can actually take a vacation like this, and it's wrecked. And that's of course not at all important, but it's one of those things, and it just hit even harder because this is a guy, that's an emotion you don't see on camera. You hear the laughter, you hear the sophomoric humor, you see him play his video games and have a good time, and that's the kind of positive energy that I need, that I draw on to get through some pretty difficult days. So that was tough. And I can imagine that it's going to be difficult for this particular content creator moving forward. And he's certainly far from the only one. He's just the one person that I can relate to the most because he's someone I feel, even though I don't know him, it feels almost like a friend. I understand his personality and his preferences. But obviously it's bigger than that. I mean, not just Kobe, but Kobe's daughter, 13-year-old daughter. I can't even wrap my head around that. That's an age of a young person that I work with every day, and that's chilling. And the people that Kobe leaves behind, his surviving daughters, his wife, his friends, his former teammates, other people whose lives that he's touched, whether it's through the sport itself or speeches that he's made, or examples that he has set. He is going to leave a huge hole that will probably never be filled appropriately, and that's tough. So yeah, I mean, I struggle with this. I'm trying to, I racked my brains today trying to think about the last or the times in my life that I felt like this, when it's someone that I don't have a personal relationship with. Obviously, I've lost family members, grandparents, uncles, but not. But that's different. Where I'm talking about musicians, for example. When Lane Staley of Alice in Chains died, that really messed with my head because Lane was such a vocal influence for me. And this kind of continued down the line when Scott Weiland died, when Chris Cornell died, when Chester Bennington died. These were all guys that I've loved their music, and they've been huge vocal influences. And to have them go was very difficult for me to wrap my head around. I remember when Dave Mirra died, I made a video about that, talking about Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX and how that's how I learned who he was. And the one thing or the two events that I always circle back to that stick out in my mind, even though they're on a much grander and much more larger scales. The Challenger disaster, that's really the first one I remember. I was in 7th grade. When that happened, they wheeled the TV into my classroom, and we watched multiple angles of the disaster in silence for almost an hour. And then 9/11, of course, which is still chilling to this day. I remember that day, I rolled out of bed and I went to the living room and turned the TV on, and every single channel was this coverage, and I could not believe what I was seeing. And I remember I actually had to go to work that day. I was working for a cable company, and I was training, and our work was not canceled for us, so we had to go into work, which was weird. So, I mean, I remember those things, and I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember being in Best Buy and seeing that message and just not believing that it happened. I don't know. It's just hard to wrap my head around it. I mean, Kobe was 41. I'm going to be 48 in April. It is not fair that he is gone before me. He was just starting new phases of his life. He was involved in movies, and he was helping out in other aspects of basketball, and his daughter was becoming a fantastic player in her own right, and he was reconnecting with younger players in the league and continuing to set examples, and like that's just no. I can't wrap my head around it. But here we are. So to any of you who may be watching this who are struggling, who are grieving, who are trying to piece this together, my thoughts are with you. You're not alone at all. And it's going to take a while, but eventually we will come to grips with this, and we will certainly, we will not forget number 8, number 24. And yeah, I think that this coming week, I think I got to get into the old bedroom and fire up some basketball and do what the content creator that I was talking about does, and just play as him and see how many points I can score. See if I can meet that 81 points that he did. So until the next time, take care of yourselves, your families, your friends, each other. And until that time comes, see you later.